Today is the Supreme Court's first opinion issuance day since Politico published Justice Samuel Alito's draft opinion on abortion. This morning, the Supreme Court issued an opinion on Patel versus Garland, ruling that courts do not have jurisdiction to review certain executive branch findings that determine whether someone should be deported. It's a very interesting ruling with Gorsuch joining the liberal justices. It was 5-4, but Gorsuch was with Breyer, Kagan, Sotomayor. The Supreme Court also sided with Senator Ted Cruz in his First Amendment challenge to federal campaign finance law, dictating how and when a candidate can recoup their loans that they made to their own campaigns. That one was 6-3 along political lines.
And the court also agreed to take up two new cases, Jones versus Hendricks, which has to do with prison inmates, and SEC versus Cochran. And over the weekend, demonstrations in support of abortion protections took place across all corners of the country. Organizers say 380 bans off our bodies protests were planned in cities including New York, D.C., Los Angeles, Seattle, and Nashville. According to an NBC News poll conducted after the Alito draft opinion leaked, most Americans still support upholding Roe v. Wade. 60% of respondents believe abortion should be legal most or all of the time. That's compared to 37% who believe abortion should be illegal in most or all cases. Also, I found that there was another poll that came out saying that this really hasn't moved the needle as far as how people are going to vote, that they're still going to vote pretty much the way that they were planning on voting prior to this leak coming out. So also thought that was pretty interesting. I mean, I think that's probably... I don't know if that really would sway people from one side of the aisle to the other. Maybe, with independents, I suppose, but I don't know if it's that much of an issue to a lot of voters for them to say, well, no, we must have this, rather than allowing the states, I suppose, to be able to do what they want.
So much happens from day to day. It's hard for me to imagine that abortion, whatever's happening here, will still be in the minds of voters months from now when the election rolls around. People have been pretty clear based on the polling that inflation is their number one concern. They have financial concerns. They're worried about how they are going to feed their families, how they're going to afford gas, that kind of thing. And as that continues to get worse, you have more people who are feeling really left out by the Biden administration, that whatever their plans are, they're not good enough. So right up against that, I don't know that. Now, it could be the case that if this decision goes the way it's expected to go based on the draft, that now you don't have Roe v. Wade anymore. States can go their own way. You could have some state, but I guess the states that are most likely to go super restrictive on abortion they're so red anyway that it's not going. Even if there's some voters in there that in those states that get really upset about that and who were not voting Democrat, but now they're going to vote Democrat over that. There's probably not enough of them to change the composition of any of the states that are going to go as extreme in that direction, right? So even if it hurts you, if it hurts you in those places, the math doesn't matter on that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're I'm from Idaho. It's a real conservative state. It's a state that's expected to ban abortions if Roe v. Wade gets overturned. And yeah, there's definitely a lot of Democrats, inside, especially like Boise, for example, a larger city. So bigger cities in every state, even the red ones, tend to be blue. So there's going to be a big uprising in the major cities. I would imagine people feeling very limited by their state. The states have always been very limiting in a lot of other ways. Like, for example, in Idaho, you can't buy liquor except through a government-run liquor store. You can't just go to the grocery store and buy liquor like you can here in California. So there's a lot of restrictions, but you're right. The vast majority of the voters are still going to be voting red, and they support the idea of banning abortion completely. They feel like it's a murder issue, and that's how they feel about it. And so I don't see, unless there's like a major shift in the demographics or just in the way people view abortion, but the thing is that the mentality around the abortion debate has shifted so much. It was, I think even just a few decades ago, more people were okay with it, I think, than now, actually. I feel people have become less liberal on this issue. I've seen polls where actually it's now more 50-50, whereas at one point, like in the 60s or 70s, or let's say the 70s or 80s, I suppose, it was more like 65 to 70% of the country was okay with it. And now I think that number has dwindled. So we're actually seeing a reversal in the attitude about it, going in a more conservative direction than the other way. And so that's, I think that's also why we're at where we're at with this.
Well, there's a majority out there. There's a significant, it is a majority of people who think abortion should be legal in some cases, in a lot of cases for people who certainly need it, but also that it should be restricted in some cases and maybe is not a thing to celebrate or encourage on its own. And, what sort of solutions or interventions or things can we, pursue to make it so that it doesn't come to that. And that's a very large constituency that is not really heard from in the kind of screaming matches over this issue. But speaking of places where there will be certainly more restrictive laws in place should Roe collapse. Yesterday, Nebraska Governor Pete Ricketts told CNN, should the Supreme Court overturn Roe, he'll hold a special legislative session to institute a complete abortion ban in the state. And I don't know, how complete is complete, but...
Yeah, just saying that you can't get one at all. And I don't think that that's a popular viewpoint. I certainly think that I think that more and more people have become more conservative on the abortion debate, meaning that they were at one point saying it's fine anytime, whatever. And now they say, well, maybe only in the first 12 weeks or the first 10 weeks or 8 weeks or something. So attitudes, I do think, have become a little bit more conservative. I don't know if they're this conservative, though, where they say we just want to ban it outright completely. You can't even get one. But then, I think there's a lot of discussion even of banning like the morning after pill, or even wasn't one governor talking about banning even contraception, saying that they don't even believe in contraception.
Right, which is absolutely crazy. And their assurances from sort of the very religious conservative wing of the Republican Party is never reassuring on that. They'll say, oh, yeah, we're not focused on that right now. But, But you clearly would be focused on that if you thought you had the ability to do it, which is which is absolutely crazy. I want contraception to be more easily available to people. I think it's excessively gatekept by the FDA for no reason, by the medical establishment. They make you see a doctor. People know how to use these products safely. They know what they need. It's crazy. Right. But like you said, the 10 weeks, the 15 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it is, that's more in line, as it turns out, with what Europe has, which we're always being told we should be by liberals, right? That why can't we be more like Europe? Well, they don't have a total you can get an abortion right up until the very end sort of regime in general. They have a policy that actually looks, somewhat sensible or somewhat in keeping to me with what sort of the median person, a lot of people in America think about this issue, and I think that's important to know.
Well, it's still a very, Europe is still very Christian, and they're very religious still, and much of the, like in Germany, for example, I believe that you have to actually tell the government you don't want your money to go to the church. You actually have to say, don't send some of my money, some tithes or something to the church. So I think they're still very ingrained in a more religious kind of way of thinking. Same with South America. South America is also much more conservative when it comes to the abortion issue.
South America is actually very religious. You're right. Europe has such a legacy of Christendom ingrained in some way, but the people are, I think, more secular than we are to a substantial degree, even if the laws are still corresponding to the time period when they were more religious. But it is interesting.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are some places, but they're not. I think their church attendance rates are like way lower than ours, I think. But maybe that's not everything.
Yeah, I don't know. Every building's a church over there, so they're always in church.
The New York Times, though, by the way, has reported that Justice Clarence Thomas told conference goers at an event in Dallas this weekend that the leaked Roe draft opinion has destroyed trust within SCOTUS. He said, quote, "What happened is tremendously bad. I wonder how long we're going to have these institutions at the rate we're undermining them." I don't know. What do you think about that?
I mean, I don't see the courts going away anytime soon. I mean, for him to say that I get the idea that SCOTUS is supposed to be this kind of above the fray, above politics. It's supposed to stay out of all of that, but that's just not the reality of SCOTUS. It's never been that way. They've often ruled based on the climate, the cultural climate of the day, and they are a political body, whether they like it or not. They're appointed by politicians, and then they're confirmed by politicians. And these politicians are selecting SCOTUS justices based on a lot of politics. So, I understand that the leak was this, oh my gosh, this has never happened before. I don't even know if that's really 100% true. I think it has to some, maybe some other levels happened before, maybe not to this degree. But I don't think this is undermining the institution any more than the institution is already undermined. Not that, again, I think SCOTUS is actually still very much a political institution, unfortunately, and fortunately at times, because it does rule, like I said, with the climate of the culture.
It does. Probably one of my most sort of institutionally conservative views is that I like the Supreme Court and I want it to maintain its credibility. The fact that it has more credibility than Congress or the executive branch is something we should try to protect somewhat. So I do take his point that this kind of stuff starts to undermine, it starts to make the Supreme Court look like it's part of this ridiculous theater of, the television show Veep or just the craziness of DC, and we ought not to give that impression. Not that this, individual thing is the end of the world, but
I just think we have to live in reality. And the reality of it is that SCOTUS has always been a political arm just as much as any of the other branches. I mean, we could try to pretend like these guys are all these wise old people in their robes, making decisions truly based on, what is the best for the people, and all of these like wisdom things, like there's some sort of, but it's just not reality. I mean, the reality is that it's been an activist court for a long time, and it has been, and they oftentimes will go back and reverse a ruling that was once made by a previous SCOTUS, and that is what it is. So I don't think that this undermined them any, and I actually think it's fine to go ahead and put a little pressure on them. That they make decisions based on that anyway, whether we're doing it or not. So I just think it's like a facade that I don't mind people realizing is not the reality with them.
Fair enough. Well, tomorrow on Rising, we'll cover any updates that come out in the mass shootings in Buffalo, New York, Southern California, and we'll also be looking for new SCOTUS news, so stay tuned.
Yeah, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. For those of you who like to listen while on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.